and welcome to this new 2021 episode of Guitar Dudes. It's 2021. We made it. I'm
Here
John.
we are.
Yeah, I'm John.
BC.
Always subscribed. BC.
Yeah, we made it. We made it to through that crap year. So
We
I'm not gonna
survived it.
say I'm not gonna say it can't get any worse.
No.
Every time I do, someone
No,
else
no, no.
dies. So
Okay. We've lost. Okay, what was it? Last year, 2020, we lost Eddie Van Halen, the
Yeah.
King.
yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, and that was that was bad enough, but
Yep.
oh, and you should check out his son Wolfgang did a song dedicated to his dad. It's got a really cool video.
I heard about that.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's on YouTube. And
Okay.
I'll try to think of it maybe during the show. But no, it's worth it, and you can really tell. He definitely picked up his old man's musical genius. Because
Yes.
he's good, but at the same time he's kind of his own artist at the same time. So
Yeah.
a little more modern, So yeah, it's worth checking out.
He's got to be in his 30s.
Yeah.
He's got to be in his
30s.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're probably a little bit older than him.
Yeah.
We're older than everybody. We're starting to get.
We're starting to get up there.
Well, we've known each other, you and I, since we were what?
5 or 6.
5 or 6. We're what?
Kindergarten.
41. Yeah. So
I just turned 42. Yeah. So it's been a long time, and it just shows you how things have evolved. In fact, that's what our topic is for today. But before we get to it, just to show you where my 2020 began compared to 2021. My 2020 began with a bullet hole in the hood of my car. New Year's Eve, people are partying, they're shooting their guns up in the air. I go out, New Year's Day. At first I thought it was bird crap. I thought, what is that? And it was a nice 1 inch, at least 1 inch indentation in my car. Turned out it's a .45 caliber, so somebody was really partying.
yeah,
So
they were.
You better believe that.
Better someone really doesn't like you.
Well, the cops came out and they said it easily could have come from a mile away. So that just to put my 2020 beginnings in perspective of 2021, the first thing I did was I went out and inspected my car to make sure I had no bullet holes.
No bullet
holes.
Not getting shot at. Your
right.
time
So
to start
that
the new year.
So that just goes to show you that 2021 is off to a very good start. And I picked up this beauty. So
wasted no time at all, folks.
New gear, new year, or new year, new gear, however you want to put it. PRS Custom 24. So between no bullet holes and a new guitar, I'm feeling pretty good about this year so far.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty one.
Yeah.
I knew when you posted that picture on Facebook, like I might get it. It's like, oh, might nothing. He's got it in his trunk. No, that's a pretty one though. There's a lot of guys. That's kind of the one guitar I've never played. Well, I've played, but I've never owned.
Right.
But I've been close. I think if I was going to buy another electric, that would probably be it.
It's comfortable like a Strat body.
Yeah.
But it plays, or I should say sounds like a Les Paul. It's not as ferocious, and anybody who's ever played a Les Paul knows what I'm talking about. A Les Paul is just, it's in your face. It's rock the night away kind of thing. This, they kind of toned it back just a little bit. But I mean, it'll bark if you want it to bark, but it's not all bark all the time like a Les Paul. I mean, you really have to dial a Les Paul back in order for it to sound clean or subtle.
When I was watching a rig rundown, there's a channel on YouTube called Premier Guitar, and they do rig rundowns. And I like to watch that because it's like these famous guitar players, and it's kind of their stage rigs, what pedals they're using, what guitars and stuff. Well, they had one with Ted Nugent, who I'm a big fan of. And he plays Gibson Birdlands, which is a sweet guitar.
That's the hollow body, isn't it? Or
it's like an old jazz guitar or something. But he did like Stranglehold and stuff. I mean, that's all Birdland. You know, it's
Okay.
that spruce top,
Hmm.
hollow body. It's a lot of feedback, and he uses
Okay.
that feedback as you know, to kind of get his sustain.
It's part of his sound. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he also plays Les Pauls and PRS. So
Okay.
he said a PRS kind of makes you play differently.
It
That
does.
was one of the
Yeah.
comments he made, is it makes you play differently. And I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
It has kind of a neck that kind of, I don't know. It does, yeah, it does. I think it kind of takes you in different places. And
It does.
how are the clean tones on it?
The clean tones are great.
Yeah.
Like I said, it this is probably the most balanced sounding guitar
Hmm.
outside of the Telecaster, which you own a Tele, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. The only difference is with the humbuckers versus single coil pickups. The single coils in the Tele, it'll bark if you want to. You can add maybe like a high gain boost or a low gain boost or just a boost in general, and you can
Hmm.
make that Tele bark for some single coils. The same thing with this.
Yeah.
It's for humbuckers, it'll bark if you want to, but if you want to dial it back and play just some nice clean tones, in fact, I was running
Hmm.
it through my chorus pedal, and I was just doing some finger,
Yeah.
and I thought, wow, yeah. So it's very
Hmm.
versatile, like a Tele. So that's why I think that the Tele and the PRS are going to be my go-tos as far as just
Hmm.
very versatile guitars,
Yeah.
and so that just kind of shows you that that's my music evolution through having a Gibson, Fender, Epiphone, Gretsch, and now a PRS. In fact, that's our topic for today
Right.
is music evolution, how music has evolved the past 70 years from the 50s on. In fact, the
Hmm.
last two episodes, what did we do? We talked about the classic rock period, drugs and rock and roll, and how classic rock has influenced us. But then you then talked about more on the grunge side in our last episode in part two. So
Right.
how would we put a nice bow around just those two leading us into music evolution between classic rock and grunge? What
Into what happened after grunge, because
exactly? And
things
that's what we're
got kind
talking
of
about.
weird
Yeah.
after
Mm-hmm.
grunge. Um, yeah, I mean, grunge, and I think if you look at the musicians that were actually playing, grunge, um, they that's right in you and I, our age range, where
Yeah.
we grew up on our dad's music, which is
Mm-hmm.
Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all that stuff.
Right.
And not that grunge sounded anything like Pink Floyd, but you still, it was very guitar heavy, very and still very simple. I mean, grunge didn't rely on a lot of effects. I mean, it was three, four
Right.
piece bands.
Yeah.
But then um I think, you'd had classic rock, you'd had hair metal,
Mm-hmm.
you'd had grunge, and after that you got into what they call it, post grunge.
Post grunge. Speaking of which, in fact, I was listening to Smashing Pumpkins. I was coming
Hmm.
home from the grocery store today, and I was thinking about bringing this topic up because when it came to classic rock, you had first British invasion, then the second British invasion, but kind of in between,
Hmm.
you had the 70s. You had, like you mentioned, Pink Floyd. You had Led Zeppelin. So
Hmm.
they were kind of the in between.
Hmm.
Whereas with grunge, you know, we would say, okay, grunge ended on this date,
Hmm.
kind of like with rock and roll. In 1959, when the plane crashed with the Big
The
Bopper,
day the
everybody
music
called it
died.
the day
Yeah.
the music died. Well, it kind of there's these kind of fluxes in between, like between the first and
Hmm.
second British invasion.
Yeah.
Well, same thing going from grunge to post grunge. So speaking of Smashing Pumpkins, would you say that they were grunge or post grunge or both?
Um, Probably you could almost call them grunge. When they started out, and they were almost kind of, they were more under, to me, the more alternative side, the more
Yeah.
musical. I kind of grouped them with, like, you got like your heavier stuff, like your Nirvana,
Yeah.
Soundgarden, Alice in Chains,
Hmm.
where which any of that could easily be considered hard rock
Yeah.
and by today's standards. But then you had like, your Smashing Pumpkins, Radiohead, Screaming Trees, Pearl Jam.
Right.
Not as loud, but yeah, definitely grunge. But there were there were a few bands I think that were able to make that transition from. Because see, when grunge was big, remember, like even on MTV, you had actually played rock and roll videos.
Yeah.
Kids, long time ago, when MTV played videos. But no, they
yeah.
But you started getting, and I think that's where it kind of died. And at least my opinion, that's where the kind of the bow wraps around was. You started having a lot of bands that were just trying to get in on the big grunge infusion, and so you had a lot of music come out then. You had a lot of good music, Silverchair, bands like that. But then you had a lot of copycat, a lot of bands that kind of came out that, everybody had the same haircut. Everyone was, and it finally, you can have too much of a good thing. And I think, it started getting to where,
you can almost hear it though. Have you noticed? I'm glad that you mentioned Silverchair. That's one of my favorite grunge, post grunge, and I would label them as grunge. Definitely one of my favorite bands. But you could almost listen to the music, and you could tell, especially if you were like us, that listened to a lot of that style of music. You could almost tell if they were posers or not. And I'm going to slide a little bit more into the post grunge, the late 90s with Creed. Love Creed. In fact, Mark Tremonti plays a PRS. In fact, he actually has his own signature model, which is actually really affordable. It's actually under $800. But then came along the band Stained. You remember Stained?
Yep.
To me, it almost felt like Stained was just riding the coattails of Creed. The lead singer, I don't know his name.
Aaron Lewis.
He was trying to sound like Scott Stapp. And to me, Stained. I'm not knocking Stained, but to me, it felt like they were a little too Creed-like. Like they were posers almost. But you could tell. You can listen to them and go, they're real and they're, I don't know.
Yeah, you did. I mean, like I said, you had Stained. I never could get on 100% on board. Aaron Lewis is a great singer, I think.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's their guitar player I didn't like. I didn't know if it was. I don't know. I just couldn't get into all of their stuff. I don't know. Musically, I think they could have done. If he was in it, you take like the singer for Stained and put him in a band with a really good guitar player.
Yeah.
I think he could really do
like a Mark Tremonti, or someone like that who could really, or maybe somebody even better than that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where bands like Pearl Jam, who I've always been a big fan of, and even Alice in Chains, Red Hot Chili Peppers, they weren't ever grunge, but they got really big in the night. That was the thing with grunge getting so big. A lot of other genres like metal, industrial, people were listening to Pantera, so it just got people listening to a little more rock. And actually a lot of the hardcore, grunge bands, they don't like to be called grunge. They're like, no, we're rock and roll.
Rock, exactly. But real rock, kind of like with hard rock musician, or like you mentioned with hair metal, that kind of thing. They don't want to be compartmentalized into a really specific subgenre. It's Alice in Chains, they're rock. Nirvana, they're rock. You're right.
Yeah, and only a few. I mean, bands like Pearl Jam, they were able to kind of, and they're still making music today. They were able to, to kind of cross over and keep reinventing themselves. But then you got into a lot of, remember rap rock. You had POD, Limp Bizkit, Papa Roach,
Papa Roach.
Then that was a
Yeah.
huge thing. You had
Yeah.
I'm playing with a tennis ball, folks, in case I don't know why the dog brought it to me and then she went to sleep. So
Hold on
anyway,
to
yeah,
it.
I have to have something in my hand. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rock rap. Did you ever get into any of that?
A little bit with Limp Bizkit. I was more into Kid Rock.
Kid Rock, that's another one.
Kid Rock, and there's another one I was just listening to earlier, Linkin Park. I was listening
Linkin
to Linkin
Park.
Park. It was a different style, and then I think the first time that I ever listened to industrial, like Rob Zombie or White
Mhm.
Zombie back then, back in the late '80s, early '90s, that really changed. I mean, especially with Astro Creep 2000. I mean, with More
Mhm.
Human Than Human,
That was
style,
crazy.
it was crazy. I'm like, this is nuts. And of course, you're a big fan of John Five, who
Yeah.
plays with Rob Zombie now.
Yep.
But that stuff. Oh, speaking of which, and you may already know this, but I want our viewers to know this. John Five, if you are a subscriber to Amazon Prime, let's see if you know this. John Five just released his live invasion on Amazon Prime, so you can actually watch his concert. And it may be kind of a mesh of concerts, but I watched
Wow.
the first song last night, so I recommend check it out. John Five, John the number 5.
I'm looking now. Wow.
I've intrigued you. Yeah, in fact, I was on Facebook last night,
Uh-huh.
and John Five had just posted, "Hey, um, if you're not Amazon Prime, you can rent or buy. It's not much. It's like $4 to rent, like $8 or $9 to buy." But then he said, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, that you can watch now. So I was watching Cobra Kai, which, by the way, Cobra Kai season 3 is out on Netflix, and that intrigued me enough to go, I'm going to go check this out. So I paused it, went over to Amazon Prime, and what do you know? John Five's live invasion, free. Yes.
Yes.
So
Sorry if it's blurry.
that's
Wow.
So
Wow.
yes, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, and if you're not sure who John Five is, but then again, if you're not sure who Rob Zombie is, listen to their music first. Like I said, it's very industrial.
Yeah. Very, very industrial.
Yeah,
But John Five plays a lot of country. He plays a lot of.
yeah.
If you ever get a chance to see him live, or
Mhm.
go on Amazon.
Plus, you've actually met him. You and Brax, y'all actually met him before.
He played at the. He played we saw him play 3 times. 2 times was at a local pizza joint. A pizza joint up
Oh,
here called Louis G's, which they've shut down since then.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a pizza. It was this is the Seattle area, right? You can
Yeah.
go you walk in, it's just a hole in the wall pizza place.
Mhm.
That's it. It's nothing fancy. But then they have like a standing room place but he was he was playing for a small crowd, and he did all these small deals.
Wow.
And I read that with his tour, he pays for everything himself. So he has plenty of money,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to launch a big, massive stadium tour, but stuff like that works fine. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was another one. He played with Marilyn Manson.
That's right. Yeah, Marilyn
that-
Manson was another one.
9 Inch Nail. He didn't play with 9 Inch Nails, but that's another example, like for
Yeah.
the post after grunge.
Hmm.
But yeah, I remember rap rock. I got back to that.
Yeah.
I used to bump some Limp Bizkit.
Sure. Sure.
I don't know. Will probably get made fun of 1,000 times over. But hey, at the time, I was
It
like,
was so different because
it was just different.
there was
I
a
wanted
gap. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
gap because back in the '80s you had Run DMC, and it disappeared for a while,
right.
and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden in the '90s it's like, whoa, rap rock is back.
Right. And then, you started seeing everybody kind of getting on the rock rap thing,
Oh
and
yeah,
then,
a lot of posers.
but then, what I was when we can probably get into more in a later episode, kind of after post grunge, you started, you kind of had this resurgence of where I think music is starting to go back to its roots a little bit.
Yeah.
You listen to bands like the White Stripes, like Jack White,
Mhm.
that's like 50s, 60s style you know, just a tube amp cranked all the way up,
Yeah.
um, and the drum set. I mean, that's it. Um, bands like, oh my God, there's so many of them now that I can't think of them. Who's that one band? It's, oh, dang it. I know I'm not going to think of it. I'll think of it the second we get off. But anyway, but there's kind of been this
Yeah.
kind of resurgence of garage rock.
Yes.
And we can maybe get into some of that later, where a lot of, even bands like a Royal Blood, right? They're if you listen to any of their stuff, it's a bass player and a drummer. That's it.
Yeah.
And but they use pedals, and the bass kind of sounds like a guitar. I mean, but it's
Yeah.
very, garage rock. There's a whole, kind of a whole sub genre that I think is starting to come back. So,
Well, and you mentioned garage rock, which I'm sure grunge kind of had some. In fact, if you pull up on, I think it's Apple Music, if you pull up, say, Nirvana's Nevermind album, and I just kind of stumbled across this. There's a deluxe version, and you can listen to some of their, they call them cassette tapes or cassette tape recordings, and you
mhm.
can actually listen to some of their songs, their popular songs that we all know, and you can listen to their quote unquote cassette tape recordings, and it's really cool actually. You
Okay,
know,
yeah,
you got Dave Grohl just beating the hell out of the drums, and it
huh.
sounds it sounds really raw, but it's pretty cool. So that's what I kind of thought of garage rock. Plus, you also had college rock.
Right,
When we graduated, if you watch the movie American Pie, there's a lot of garage rock. I'm sorry, college rock style
yeah.
music, and that was really popular. Kind of an alt rock or sub genre.
Weezer and
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Beck, that kind of, yeah.
yeah.
And
Um,
where would you say that post grunge? I'm sorry, that grunge ended in post grunge. To me, I want to say it was Foo Fighters. It was almost like Dave Grohl, the drummer from Nirvana. It's almost like he was kind of like the father of post grunge. Would you say
yeah,
the Foo Fighters?
yeah. I mean, that was kind of he's another one that was able to sort of stand the test of time, reinvent
Hmm.
himself.
And they're still playing.
They're still in, and they're one of the bigger bands.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I I almost want to kind of attribute metal a little bit, because
Hmm.
as grunge got really big, and then you had the zillion grunge bands, and there's this, you can flood the market. There can be
Yeah.
too much. But I think it's the other kind of genres that sort of bubbled up, that, or at least they were around the whole time, but people
Yeah.
started to take note. And like punk had been around for years,
Hmm.
before grunge. But I mean, that's people like Green Day got really
Offspring.
big. Offspring,
Yeah.
Rancid,
Yeah.
Sublime. I mean,
Hmm.
so I don't know, maybe I think when grunge ended, I think it's when a lot of these you know,
It
other
opened up the
genres sort of took
doors.
off. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so people started, I think it just opened people's minds,
Yeah.
because I mean, we had so much Vanilla Ice and, and New Kids on the Block and
MC
everything.
Hammer.
And,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
then hair metal. I mean, it took a lot of anger to get us to where we are
So
right now.
that's what led us to grunge, was all the, I don't want to call it crap, because I don't want people to call my music crap, so I don't want to say crap, but different.
Right.
We went through this period of hair metal, glam, uh, pop. You had
Hmm.
Madonna, you had Michael Jackson. I think people were ready for something different in the rock
Yeah.
world, which I think then happened again
Right.
post grunge. People were, like I said, it was bubbling up.
Hmm.
You had Marilyn Manson, you had Rob Zombie or White Zombie back then. You had all these
Hmm.
Pantera, because Pantera, they were playing in the 80s. They're actually from Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Pantera's a Texas band. So they had all these bubbling up, but all of
Hmm.
a sudden, it was almost like a doorway for just all these different, like you said,
Hmm.
rap rock, industrial. It was like we were flooded, And to
Yeah.
me, I didn't really notice a lot of that until I was in
Mm-mm.
college.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, like with Godsmack, there's um, with what new metal,
New
um,
metal, corn.
Corn.
Um,
I'd never heard of them until
no.
all of a sudden it's almost like these bands that were brewing
Yeah.
eventually caught on in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Where have y'all been? They're like, we've been playing for the last, decade.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, since I'm the timekeeper, I just looked and I was like, oh man, yeah, we're probably reaching time to ride off into the sunset on this glorious Sunday.
It's such a great topic, and maybe we'll touch more on this next time, or
Yeah, let's
we
keep
might
going.
even do a part two because it really is a really interesting topic of talking about music evolution from grunge to modern times, just all the different things because there's so much that's happened.
And we're old enough and gray enough to have seen so much of it. you know?
Indeed, indeed.
Yep. Yep.
So don't
all
forget
right.
to don't forget to like
subscribe.
and subscribe. Mm-hmm.
Tell your
comments. Yeah.
Tell your friends, family.
Yes.
This is the greatest YouTube channel on YouTube.
That's right. We are Guitar Dudes.
The Guitar Dudes.
That's right. So we'll see you next time.
Next time.